Don't go home tonight. If my son hadn't whispered those 6 words into my ear, I wouldn't be telling this story. I would have been ashes by sunrise. It was almost 9 p.m. when I pulled up to departures at DFW International Airport. The place was exactly what you'd expect on a weekday night. Tail lights glowing red in long, impatient lines, rolling suitcases rattling across concrete, airport announcements bleeding through the glass like background noise you stop hearing after a while. The kind of chaos that feels temporary, forgettable. My wife, Megan, leaned across the center console and kissed my cheek. Quick, light, efficient, like a routine she'd practiced enough times to stop thinking about it. 3 days in Phoenix, she said, straightening the cuffs of her blazer. Client dinners, early meetings. Don't let Noah stay up too late. Her voice was calm, professional, the same tone she used on conference calls. Our son, Noah, sat in the back seat in his booster, his small backpack hugged tight against his chest. He didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't say goodbye. He just stared at the automatic doors sliding open and closed like they were swallowing people whole. Megan opened the door, and the night air rushed in cold, metallic, sharp with jet fuel. She grabbed her carry-on, gave me that familiar smile people use in photos when they're tired of smiling, and disappeared into the crowd without looking back. I put the car in drive. That's when Noah grabbed my arm. Not a tap, not a tug, a grip. His fingers locked around my sleeve so hard I felt the tremble through my jacket. "Dad," he whispered. His voice was thin, fragile, like if he spoke any louder, it would break. "Don't go home tonight." I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. His face was pale under the dashboard glow. Eyes too wide, not kid wide, panic wide. I forced a small laugh. The kind parents use when they don't want to scare their kids. "What are you talking about, buddy?" He swallowed. Hard. "I know something about Mom," he said. "And you have to believe me. Not like last time." That last line hit me harder than I expected, because there had been a last time. A week earlier, Noah had told me Mom was talking to someone in the garage at night. I'd brushed it off, told him it was probably a neighbor on the phone, and walked him back to bed. 3 nights ago, he said, a car parked across the street and watched our house for a long time. I told him he'd been reading too many spooky comics and turned off the light. Kids imagine things. That's what adults tell themselves. But this time was different. He wasn't imagining. He was terrified. His grip tightened. "She said you weren't supposed to be there tonight." My stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" He hesitated, then leaned forward and whispered like the car itself might be listening. She said, "He'll be home. The power will go out. It'll look like an accident." The word accident landed heavy. My mouth went dry. Power. Accident. Those weren't kid words. Those were adult words. The kind adults use when they're trying to make something terrible sound normal. I pulled into short-term parking and shut off the engine. The silence inside the car felt louder than the airport outside. "Did you hear her say that?" I asked. He nodded fast, tears spilling over. And she said, "Make sure Noah's asleep." Like I was part of it. My hands went numb on the steering wheel. My brain tried to explain it away. Stress, misheard conversation, childhood fear. But fear like this doesn't come from imagination. It comes from certainty. I turned in my seat and looked straight at him. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'm listening." Noah stared through the windshield like he could see the future written on the glass. "I heard her on the phone last night," he said. "In the garage. She thought I was asleep." "With who?" "A man." She called him Ray. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Noah said it made my chest tighten. "She said you always reset the breaker when it trips," he continued. "That you go to the basement every time." A chill crawled up my spine. The electrical panel was in the basement, and he was right. I always went down there when the power cut out. I even joked about it, my dad's superpower. "She said you wouldn't suspect anything because you've been working so much," Noah whispered. That one hurt, because it was true. Long hours. Late nights. Always promising I'd make it up to them later. "And then," he said, voice barely audible. She said, "Noah's a complication." Something inside me cracked. A complication. Not a child. Not a son. A problem. Someone else on the phone laughed, Noah said. And my wife didn't correct him. I reached across the console and covered Noah's shaking hands with mine. "You did the right thing telling me," I said. He looked up, eyes wet. "Are you mad?" "Mad?" My voice broke. Buddy, you might have just saved our lives. His shoulders dropped like he'd been carrying something far too heavy for an 8-year-old. I didn't drive home. I drove away. Past the airport lights. Past the exit I'd taken 100 times before. I pulled into a 24-hour diner off the highway, bright neon, fogged windows, the smell of burnt coffee and frying grease. Public, loud, safe. Noah slid into the booth and tucked himself into the corner, eyes darting every time the door opened. "Tell me everything," I said. And he did. Every word, every detail, every sentence that made my blood run colder. When we finally left, I paid cash and drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, outside entrance, a view of the parking lot. No plan, just one rule. We were not going home. That night, as Noah slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and realized something that terrified me more than the warning itself. The scariest part wasn't what my son told me. It was how many times I'd ignored him before. If you're listening right now, pause for a second and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it there? Because this story only exists for one reason. An 8-year-old found the courage to speak, and his father finally chose to listen. The night we didn't go home, the hardest part wasn't leaving the house. It was realizing that the place I'd worked so hard to protect was already dangerous long before we drove away. Noah fell asleep fast in the motel bed, curled on his side with his knees tucked up like he was trying to disappear into himself. His breathing slowed, uneven at first, then steady. Adrenaline can only carry a child so far before exhaustion takes over. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed with the TV on mute, watching his chest rise and fall. Every few minutes, I checked the lock on the door, then the deadbolt, then the window latch, then the lock again. The room smelled like cheap detergent and old carpet. Safe never smells good. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Megan. Landed. Busy night. Love you. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. 3 words jumped out at me. Busy night. My instinct was to reply the way I always did. Love you too. Sleep well. Normal. Predictable. Comfortable. But normal was gone. I typed instead, glad you landed. Noah's asleep. Talk tomorrow. The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. She didn't respond. That silence sat heavy in my chest. Because silence, when someone expects control, is rarely accidental. I thought about calling my sister. Then I stopped myself. Megan and her were polite, too polite, the kind of polite that becomes ammunition later. I needed someone outside my life. Someone who didn't care about appearances. That's when I remembered Caleb Warren. Years ago, when I was managing a construction site, equipment started vanishing. Tools, copper wiring, expensive stuff. Caleb had been the private investigator, a contractor friend recommended. Quiet, sharp, the kind of man who listened more than he talked. I scrolled through my contacts until I found his name and dialed. He answered on the second ring. Warren. Caleb? I said, keeping my voice low. It's Daniel Mercer. I think my wife is planning something. A pause. Where are you right now? He asked. Not at home. Good, he said. Start from the beginning. I told him everything. Noah's warning. The basement. The power outage. The word complication. Caleb didn't interrupt. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. You need proof, he said. I know. Then we start with her story. Phoenix trip, right? Yes. People lie with logistics, he said. Flights, hotels, receipts. If it's a lie, it'll have seams. My stomach tightened. Can you check? I can, he said. But listen carefully. Do not go back to that house. Not for clothes, not for documents, nothing. I looked at Noah sleeping. She might try again, I whispered. Caleb's voice hardened. Then you stay invisible. The call ended, but the fear didn't, because now it wasn't just my son's terror. It was a professional telling me the same thing. I barely noticed the sunrise. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Caleb, you ready? He asked. No, I said honestly. But go ahead. Your wife's flight did land in Phoenix, he said. For half a second, relief washed over me. Then he continued. But she didn't check into the hotel her company usually uses. In fact, her company didn't book anything for her at all. Cold spread through my chest. How do you know? I asked. I have access to a corporate travel system, he said. No reservation, no rental car, no expense authorization. So where is she? That's the problem, he said. She's not in Phoenix anymore. I sat up straight. What do you mean? A credit card ping. Small purchase. Gas station. Near DFW. 2 hours ago. My heart slammed into my ribs. She came back, I said. Looks that way, Caleb replied. Daniel, if she's back, the trip wasn't real. It was cover. Cover. An alibi. I stared at the thin curtains as daylight crept in, pink and harmless. Noah stirred beside me, mumbling something in his sleep. What do I do? I asked. You stay hidden, Caleb said. And you let her think the plan is still working. The idea made my skin crawl. Let her think the plan was working, like we were bait, but I understood the logic. If we went to the police with only fear and overheard words, nothing would stick. If we waited and watched, we might catch her in the act. That night, we didn't sleep in the motel. We watched our house. I parked down the street, tucked behind hedges near a neighbor's tall fence. Our home sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, porch light glowing warm and normal. Too normal. Noah sat in the back with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. Are we going inside? He whispered. No, I said. Not tonight. The hours dragged. Every passing car made my pulse jump. At 11:48 p.m., a dark sedan rolled into the cul-de-sac with its headlights off. It stopped 2 houses down. 2 men got out. Hoodies. Gloves. Calm movements. Not teenagers. Not lost. Professionals. Noah's breath hitched. That's them. One man carried something long and narrow. The other scanned the street like he'd done this before. They walked up to our front porch. They didn't break a window. They didn't force the door. One of them pulled out a key and unlocked it. My vision blurred. How do they have a key? I whispered. Noah swallowed. Mom keeps a spare in the flower pot. The men went inside. A minute later, the porch light clicked off. Then the house went dark. Every light. Gone. My son's words echoed in my head. The power will go out. It'll look like an accident. A faint orange glow bloomed behind the basement window. Smoke followed. Noah grabbed my arm. Dad. I pulled him down into the seat. Flames climbed inside the house I'd poured years of work into, and the men walked out calmly, got into the sedan, and drove away. Sirens wailed in the distance. As fire trucks turned onto our street, one truth crushed everything else. If we'd gone home that night, we would have been trapped in that basement when the power died. She came back to check if we were dead. The fire trucks arrived fast. Too fast for coincidence? Neighbors poured out onto their porches in pajamas and slippers, hands covering mouths, phones already recording, the cul-de-sac filled with flashing red lights, and the sharp smell of smoke. I stayed hidden. I held Noah so tight his blanket slipped off his shoulders, and this time he didn't complain. He pressed his face into my chest, shaking silently. Then 20 minutes later, a rideshare rolled to a stop at the end of the street. The back door opened. Megan stepped out. Not in a blazer. Not in heels. She wore jeans and a hoodie, hair pulled back like she'd rushed, like she'd come straight from somewhere close. Not Phoenix. She ran toward the crowd, screaming my name. Daniel. Noah. The words were right. The tone was right. But her face looked wrong. She wasn't frantic. She wasn't broken. She looked like someone waiting for confirmation. The fire chief met her near the curb, gesturing toward the house. Megan nodded too fast, too controlled. When he spoke again, probably telling her they hadn't found anyone yet, her eyes flicked past him, scanning, searching, not for firefighters, for bodies. When she didn't see me, something crossed her face. Not relief, fear. The kind of fear that comes when a plan doesn't end the way it's supposed to. Noah whispered into my jacket. She's not sad. My throat tightened. I know. Her first instinct wasn't to call me. It was to control the story. Megan stepped away from the crowd and started typing furiously on her phone, pacing like someone handling a crisis, not mourning a loss. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Where are you? Answer me now. Not, are you okay? Not, is Noah safe? Where are you? I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Noah's old tablet, connected to a nearby guest Wi-Fi, something Caleb had once casually taught me, joking about not leaving footprints. I typed a message that would shake her. We're safe. Don't come looking. I watched from the shadows as her phone lit up. Her face drained of color. She spun in a slow circle, eyes wild, scanning the street again like a predator, realizing its prey escaped. That's when it hit me. She didn't come back to grieve. She came back to make sure we were dead. I didn't go back to the motel. I drove across town to another one, cheaper, darker, with a back stairwell and a parking lot I could see from the window. I paid cash, signed a fake name. Noah fell asleep with the TV murmuring cartoons at low volume, his body still twitching with leftover fear. I sat in a chair by the door, phone in my hand, waiting. When Caleb called, his voice was tight. "You saw it?" "Yes." "You didn't go inside?" "No." "Good," he said, "because that fire wasn't about the house. It was about you." I stared at the dark window. "And Noah." Caleb went quiet for a second. "Yeah," he said. "And that changes everything." "How do we prove it was her?" I asked. "We follow the money," he said. "And the lies. People who plan this kind of thing always leave paper trails. Always." The next morning, Caleb met me in a grocery store parking lot like we were in a bad crime movie. He handed me a thin folder. "Your wife has a storage unit," he said. My stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because secrets need a place to live," he replied. "She rented it 2 months ago." He paused. "And she listed you as the emergency contact." My skin crawled. "So I can access it?" He nodded. "If you're ready." I thought about the men unlocking my door, the power cutting out, the glow in the basement window. "I'm ready," I said. We drove to the storage facility together. The manager handed me the key with a polite smile. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped it, because I knew whatever was behind that door was the truth. The truth wasn't hidden in a diary. It was hidden in boxes labeled like nothing mattered. Plastic bins, taped cardboard, a folding table, and on the table an envelope, my name typed neatly across the front. My chest locked. Caleb nodded once. "Open it." Inside were documents. A life insurance policy. My name, coverage, $2 million. Beneficiary, Megan Mercer. Then another, Noah, coverage, $500,000. Same beneficiary. My knees went weak. Caleb reached into another box and pulled out a small black device. "A breaker timer," he said. "Used to trip power at a scheduled time." The room tilted. Another box held a prepaid phone. Another had printed emails from a gambling website. And, at the bottom of one bin, a photo, our basement electrical panel, a red circle drawn around the breaker. I gagged, covering my mouth. Caleb's voice was low. "She built a trap. An 8-year-old overheard enough to save us. And now I had enough to destroy her. We let her think she won. Evidence feels powerful until you realize how easily it can be explained away." Caleb didn't sugarcoat it. "This is strong," he said, tapping the insurance documents spread across the motel table. "But a good lawyer can still argue coincidence, or claim you planted the evidence after the fire." My jaw tightened. "She tried to kill us." "I know," he said calmly. "That doesn't mean the court will see it the same way." I stared at the breaker timer lying between us like a dead insect. "So what do we need?" I asked. Caleb met my eyes. "We need her voice." A knot formed in my stomach. "Confessing?" "Yes," he said. In her own words. Clear. Unmistakable. I looked toward the bed where Noah sat coloring, headphones on, blissfully unaware of the conversation that would decide our future. "How?" I asked. Caleb leaned back. "We let her think she won." The words made my skin crawl. "She thinks you and Noah were supposed to die in that house," he continued. "When that didn't happen, she panicked. People make mistakes when panic meets greed." "You want me to talk to her," I said. "I want you to let her talk to you," he corrected. "We didn't go to the police first. We went to a lawyer." Her name was Monica Hayes, a former prosecutor who now specialized in criminal defense and victim advocacy. She didn't waste time on sympathy. She read the documents, studied the photos, listened to Caleb's summary. Her face hardened with every page. "This is attempted homicide," she said flatly. "And child endangerment." I swallowed. "She's Noah's mother." Monica looked up. "Then she should have acted like one." She made a few calls. Quiet ones. The kind that don't show up on phone logs you can easily access. By the end of the hour, a plan was in place. A public meeting. A controlled environment. A wire. Undercover officers. My role? Be the husband she thought she'd already beaten. Megan texted nonstop that afternoon. "Where are you? You're scaring me. This isn't funny anymore." I didn't answer. Then came the shift. "We need to talk. About insurance. About what happens next." That message told me everything. She wasn't worried about us. She was worried about money. Monica drafted a message from an official-looking number tied to the fire investigation. Mrs. Mercer, preliminary findings have concluded. We need to discuss insurance documentation and next steps. Please meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Sunrise Coffee. Megan replied in under 60 seconds. Yes, I'll be there. She didn't ask if her husband and son were alive. She asked about paperwork. That night, Noah sat on the edge of the bed, swinging his legs. Dad, he said quietly, are you going to see Mom? Yes. He went still. Is she going to lie? Probably, I said. He nodded, like he'd expected that answer. Don't let her. I knelt in front of him. I won't. Promise? The word felt heavy. I promise. The wire felt wrong against my skin, like something burning. Caleb adjusted it carefully under my jacket, his hands steady. Don't push, he warned. Let her talk. People reveal themselves when they think they're safe, Monica added, and whatever she says, stay calm. The more emotional you get, the more she'll shut down. Calm. I was about to sit across from the woman I married and pretend I didn't know she tried to erase our child. Calm felt impossible. Sunrise Coffee smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon. Normal. Too normal. Megan walked in at 10:03 a.m. Sunglasses on, designer purse over her shoulder like she was stepping into a meeting, not the aftermath of a fire. Then she saw me. Her body froze. The sunglasses came off slowly. Daniel? She whispered. Not relief. Not joy. Shock. I stayed seated. Sit. She hesitated, then slid into the chair, eyes darting around the room, calculating exits. You're alive, she said softly. The words landed wrong, like disappointment. No thanks to you, I replied. Her face shifted instantly, eyes wet, voice trembling. What are you talking about? The fire, I thought I'd been terrified. Stop, I said quietly. I slid the insurance papers across the table. Then the photo of the basement panel. Then the breaker timer. Her eyes went flat. Not confused. Caught. Who is Ray? I asked. She laughed once, sharp and humorless. You're insane. Why the basement? I pressed. Why the power outage? Why Noah? Her jaw clenched. Then she snapped. You were never home. The first crack. The first truth. You were a ghost, she continued, voice lowering. A paycheck with a heartbeat. And Noah? I asked. Her eyes didn't soften. Noah is a tether, she said. A complication. The same word. Exactly the same. My hands clenched under the table. You planned to kill him, I said. She leaned back, crossing her arms. I planned to start over. The cafe felt colder. Why? I whispered. She didn't hesitate. Money, she said. And freedom. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't confessing because she felt guilty. She was confessing because she finally felt free. She confessed because she thought it was over. Fear makes your hands shake. Rage makes them steady. I felt both as Megan kept talking, her voice low and calm, like she was finally saying things she'd rehearsed in her head for months. You don't understand, she said. I was trapped. Every day felt smaller. Every year felt heavier. I stared at her. So you decided to erase us? She shrugged. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just matter of fact. Ray said the breaker would trip at 1:15, she continued, stirring her coffee she hadn't touched. You always rush down there. Always. Like some kind of hero. My jaw tightened. And while you were in the basement, she said, the fire would start. Quiet at first, electrical, plausible. By the time anyone noticed, she stopped, as if realizing she didn't need to finish the sentence. My vision blurred. And Noah? She didn't look away. He'd be asleep. The room tilted. You drugged him? I whispered. She didn't deny it. She only said, it was kinder that way. Something inside my chest cracked open. This wasn't a woman unraveling. This was a woman explaining a business plan. You're talking about him like he's an object, I said. Her mouth tightened. After a while, that's what he became. I could hear my pulse in my ears. You plan to kill your own child, I said, louder now. She leaned forward. I plan to start over. The words landed like glass. Say it clearly, I said. Say what you planned. Her eyes flashed with anger. Fine. You want it clear? She lowered her voice. I paid someone to stage a power outage, so you'd go to the basement. I arranged the fire so it would look like an electrical accident. And yes, Noah was part of it. He couldn't stay. The cafe seemed to freeze. Even the espresso machine behind the counter hissed softer, like the room itself was listening. Megan blinked when she noticed something odd. My expression. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, almost relieved. "Why are you smiling?" she asked. I stood slowly, letting the chair scrape loud against the floor. I opened my jacket just enough for her to see it. The wire. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. Her mouth opened, closed. "No," she whispered. "No, no." A man stepped out from behind the counter. Badge visible. "Ma'am," he said evenly. "We got it." She didn't scream because she was sorry. She screamed because she lost. Megan jumped to her feet, knocking the chair back. "You set me up," she shouted, eyes wild. "You ruined everything." 2 undercover officers blocked the door before she could take a step. She spun toward me, hatred burning through every feature. "You don't understand what you took from me." "You took him first," I said, my voice breaking. "You tried to erase our son." The detective moved in, cuffs already out. As they locked around her wrists, she fought not like a grieving mother, not like someone desperate for forgiveness, but like someone furious her plan didn't work. "I was going to be free," she screamed. Free. They read her rights as she thrashed. And through all of it, she never said Noah's name. Not once. Not in regret. Not in anger. Not even in blame. Like he'd never mattered at all. I didn't feel victory. I felt empty. I sat back down as officers escorted her out, the bell over the cafe door chiming softly as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. The detective approached me. "You did good," he said. I nodded, but my hands were shaking now, because the adrenaline was gone, and all that was left was the truth. The woman I married didn't lose control. She made choices, calculated ones. That night, I went back to the motel. Noah was sitting on the bed, knees pulled up, waiting. He looked up the moment I walked in. "Did she lie?" he asked. I sat beside him and pulled him into my arms. "No," I said. "She told the truth." He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, "So, it wasn't my fault?" My chest collapsed inward. "No," I said firmly. "Never. Not even a little." He nodded slowly, like he was trying to file that truth somewhere safe. I held him until he fell asleep. And for the first time since the airport, I cried. If you're still here with me, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Because this is the moment justice shows up not perfectly, not gently, but real. And I want to know who stayed to the edge of it. The fire didn't just take my house. It took my ability to trust the word home. The case moved faster than I expected once Megan's confession was logged. Her words calm, detailed, recorded left very little room for interpretation. Ray was arrested within days. He wasn't a criminal mastermind, just a man who sold solutions to desperate people and called it a business. Megan's lawyer tried to soften the story. Stress, depression, a breakdown. But stress doesn't buy breaker timers. Depression doesn't take out insurance policies on a child. And breakdowns don't calmly describe how a fire will spread in a basement. She pled guilty. There was no dramatic trial. No shocking last-minute twist. Just paperwork. Just consequences. Noah and I never went back to that house. The lot was sold once the investigation ended. I didn't want the walls. I didn't want the memories. I didn't want to explain to my son why his bedroom smelled like smoke and betrayal. We moved into a small rental on the other side of town. Bright windows. No basement. No breaker panel hidden below our feet. The first night there, Noah walked through every room twice. "Dad," he asked, "where do you fix the power if it goes out?" I swallowed. "There isn't one place," I said, "and we won't go looking alone." He nodded, satisfied. Small victories matter more than people realize. Therapy became part of our routine. For him, for me. Some nights Noah still wakes up crying, his voice thin and shaking in the dark. "Dad?" he asks, almost every time. "Mom didn't love me. Did she?" That question never gets easier. And I don't lie to him. I sit on the edge of his bed and say the only truth that doesn't poison his future. Some people lose themselves. They stop seeing clearly. But that was never because of you. You didn't do anything wrong. You were always worthy of love. Always. He listens carefully, like he's deciding whether to believe me. Then he nods. And eventually, he sleeps. People ask me if I hate her. I don't. Hate keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. I don't forgive her either. Forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. What I feel is something quieter. Resolve. The resolve to listen. The resolve to protect. The resolve to never dismiss fear just because it comes from a small voice. Because the truth is, this story didn't start with a fire. It started with a whisper. A child brave enough to say something felt wrong, and a father finally brave enough to stop explaining it away. If there's one reason I'm telling this story, it's not revenge. It's a warning. Listen to your children. Believe them the first time, because sometimes the smallest voice in your family is the only one telling the truth. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like the video. It helps more stories like this reach people who need to hear them. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. These stories matter. Conversations like this matter. Finally, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Somewhere out there, another child might be whispering the truth, and another parent needs to hear it.